In the world of watches, you'd be hard-pressed not to find an enthusiast who doesn't know about the most important watchmaker of all time, and that is Abraham Louis Breguet. Unfortunately, in 2025, Breguet has suffered a lot in terms of popularity, just overall as a brand. However, they are celebrating their 250th anniversary this year, so I wanted to react to some of the new releases from Breguet, give you my feedback, and how I think the brand can be revitalized in the future. So let's get right into it. So as I mentioned, Breguet is celebrating its 250th anniversary this year, a milestone anniversary, probably what many people believe to be one of the most important brands in the watch industry, and without question, started by the greatest watchmaker of all time. What Abraham Louis Breguet was able to achieve in his short period in his workshop was really unmatched in the watch industry and will remain to be unmatched, I think, for future years to come. I think if you ask people who is the greatest watchmaker of all time, it's impossible not to think of Abraham Louis Breguet. I mean, his list of accomplishments include the anti-shock mechanism, the parachute shock escapement, which is still used in Breguet watches today. Of course, he's known for the equation of time. He's known for the tourbillon, which, of course, he got the original kind of schematics, the legwork being done by his friend John Arnold, the British watchmaker. But of course, the project was completed by Abraham Louis Breguet, and he's often credited for, of course, the invention of the tourbillon. But that's without even mentioning all the incredible aesthetic nuances that he added to watches, the Breguet numerals, Breguet hands, Breguet guilloche dials, Breguet enamel dials. The first watchmaker really to use these kind of materials in a pocket watch at the time, and then later and now in wristwatches. So yeah, I think without question, he is fundamentally the most important watchmaker in the history of watches, and without question, the greatest watchmaker of all time. But unfortunately, despite this incredible kind of acclaim and these accolades from the brand and the watchmaker who founded the brand, Breguet is a brand that just suffers from, I think, their own fault when it comes to their watches, especially on the primary market, but also on the secondary market in terms of just overall popularity, price, and success. Without question, I think that Breguet is suffering a sincere identity crisis, and a lot of that is actually showcased in the watches that they've released in 2025. I think that they're just kind of out of touch with the modern watch collector and what they're looking for. And I think that has to do with the fact that the brand is still living in the past. That's really the biggest issue without question from Breguet. And as a result, you see a brand that is kind of suffering in terms of popularity because really they have no appeal when you consider the fact that their watches are finished to a lower degree or to a lesser degree than they used to be in the 1980s. And at the end of the day, these watches, I think, aesthetically just aren't as good looking anymore. Now, of course, for the 250th anniversary, they launched a number of watches, 4 watches so far to start the year. So let's start first with their first release, and that was the release of the Breguet subscription, the reference 2025 BH. Now, I have to say, this was a welcome addition to Breguet's lineup. At the end of the day, this is a 40mm timepiece, but what I loved the most was the fact that this was inspired by their heritage, right, based on an original Breguet pocket watch. But at the end of the day, it was taken to a new form with a brand new case design. No more of the coin-edged mid-case, which Breguet is known for with the soldered-on lugs. This is a completely new case for Breguet, which I highly, highly applaud because it brings fresh life into the brand, a fresh new design to the brand, which I think that the brand really, really needed. However, I think that for a time-only watch to retail for $53,000 in rose gold is just completely out of touch with reality. This is a wristwatch, and I've spoken about this in prior videos, that uses a base movement slightly modified, of course finished really nicely, hand engraved, hand finished, the whole nine. But it's using the same movement from the Breguet tradition line, slightly modified, well finished, granted, but no real innovation. It's a time-only watch with 1 hour hand to showcase both the hours and the minutes, and you're charging customers $53,000. So again, I really applaud this release because it's a fresh new take, new case design, new watch for Breguet, and I really enjoy the design of the watch, but I think that the price is just completely out of touch. I think if they retailed this watch for $30,000, it would be a screaming success. A lot of people really enjoyed the release, and I'm being one of them, but I have to criticize the price. I think it's literally $20,000 to $25,000, too expensive for collectors, and at that point, it's hard to justify that kind of purchase. When you look at the landscape of other watches and what other brands are able to offer at this price point, I think Breguet just had a really big miss in terms of the price point of this watch, and unfortunately, I think it will suffer poor retail success as a result. Now, their second release was one I highly applauded. I think everything about this release is actually a knockout from Breguet, and that is the new Type 20, the reference 2075. I like in particular the regular production model with the black dial. I think this is what Breguet collectors have been screaming for a very long time. Now, it isn't a precious metal case, which I think most watch collectors, kind of purists for the brand, for the Type 20 specifically, it being, of course, a military watch that had military application, would love to have seen the watch done in stainless steel. However, in rose gold with a brand new top-down manual wind chronograph movement that's excellently and beautifully finished by Breguet at a price point that I think is really reasonable, $43,500. It's hard for me to really critique this. I think the price point is great, of course, for a manual wind chronograph. I love the format, the 2-register format. They stayed true to the classic, the original, for the 250th anniversary. And I think as well that the size at 38 millimeters is absolutely perfect. They produced a bunch of Type 20s for Only Watch that were absolutely beautiful, that were a screaming success at that auction, but that they never released in serial production. And I think this is the start of a new Type 20 lineup for Breguet that is going to realize a lot of retail success for the brand, which I think is going to be very important if the brand wants to see a resurgence. Now, next up was another miss. It was the 7035, this one with the retrograde seconds, a brand new blue enamel dial, a beautiful contemporary timepiece. Now, to put into context, the reference 7037, I believe, is the original kind of reference of the 37 millimeter model with the retrograde seconds, which I think is a beautiful timepiece, an absolutely amazing watch, and an absolute steal of a deal. This is a watch you can pick up under $20,000 all day long. Incredible hand finishing, kind of open movement where you can see all the kind of movement components working together. And of course, you get amazing finishing from the Breguet brand in a 37 millimeter case, which wears a lot larger, probably closer to 38 or 39 millimeters, all for under $20,000. I think it's one of the best value watches out there on the market today. However, this one, the new reference 7035, despite it being aesthetically beautiful, again misses in price. I mean, $51,200. I love it. It's a beautiful watch. There's no question about it. But the price is the main issue. They're pricing themselves completely out of the markets, uncompetitive in terms of their price point. I mean, how can you justify paying $50,000+ for a watch whose previous reference literally sells for less than $20,000? I mean, we're talking about less than $30,000 as opposed to this one, which is now $30,000 more expensive new at retail. It is a limited edition, will sell out most likely, or at least I think it will sell very well. But on the secondary market, there's no question about it that this will die on the secondary market because, again, its previous generation has died on the secondary market. It's $30,000 less expensive. We're talking about already 50% less than the retail of this current generation. I think if they would have priced this closer to $35,000, $40,000, it would have been a lot greater success than I think it will experience. But again, what can you do? Beautiful watch, but again, I think they're totally missing the ball when it comes to the price point. It's just far too expensive for what it is, especially considering this is an old movement that they have economies of scale because they've been making it for a very long time, and all they're doing is changing the finishing of the dial and the movement itself. And last but certainly not least is a brand new tourbillon for the brand. This is the reference 7255 from Breguet, an absolutely beautiful watch with an aventurine dial, and this time a flying tourbillon. Of course, the flying tourbillon came a lot later. Abraham Louis Breguet is the inventor of the tourbillon, but never created the flying tourbillon himself. However, it's really nice to see this new approach from Breguet, something new from the brand that we hadn't seen before. Again, I don't want to speak too much about this watch because it's a total miss in terms of the price. I mean, we're talking $226,000 for this wristwatch. I just don't understand how you can possibly justify it in Breguet's eyes. Again, I just don't see it. Economies of scale and all this stuff for the brand. I understand there's new research and development for a brand new flying tourbillon movement, but it just makes no sense. I don't understand how they think they can justify this price and actually sell out of this wristwatch. I don't think it will actually ever sell out from Breguet, and they probably won't even make full limited edition batch for this watch. It just doesn't make sense. So looking over the releases from Breguet, I have to give them a B- overall. I think they have some really nice designs. I think they missed totally on the price point on a lot of them. I think the Type 20 is the only one that I think is a real knockout hit from the brand. Again, I would have loved to see a price point in the $30,000, but at $43,000, I can't really complain overall. However, when it comes to the brand itself at 250 years old, I don't know how much longer it has left if it continues these kind of releases at these really high price points. I don't know who the buyer is at retail, and frankly speaking, I don't know how much longer Swatch will continue to pump money into Breguet, considering they're a continuous losing proposition year in and year out. In order to achieve new retail success, Breguet really needs to reinvigorate their brand by creating more watches like this new subscription watch, but ultimately creating new forms, new cases, new designs, experimenting with new designs especially is really, really important. I don't want Breguet to keep being the kind of old stuffy brand that kind of rests on its laurels and keeps pushing old Breguet pocket watch designs. It's something that we've seen before time and time again for decades and decades and decades for Breguet. It's not reached any kind of real material retail success, and it's time to move on and try a new approach. I think that's the only way that they'll experience new success at retail and hopefully live to see another 250 years. Guys, if you enjoyed this video, please be sure to hit the like button, subscribe for more videos like this in the future. As always, my name is Marco for Breguet Jewelry. If you enjoyed this, please be sure to leave a comment down below, and of course, let me know your thoughts on the new releases from Breguet in the 250th anniversary of the brand, and of course, what you'd like to see from them in the future. As always, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much for watching.